Namaskar everybody and welcome to the Gita Satsang. So let us start with the Prarthana. By the Guru's grace and the will of Sri Krishna, we have all assembled for this Gita Satsang. May we have their guidance to be able to learn and adopt the things which will help us to grow spiritually. Let us chant the prayers. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Krishnaya Vasudevaya Haraye Paramatmane Pranatah Kleshanashaya Govindaya Namo Namaha Namostu Te Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Pullara Vindaya Tapatra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajvalito Jnanamaya Pradipaha Ramanujadaya Patram Jnana Vairagyabhushanam Srimadvenkatanathāryam Vande Vedanta Deshikam Yo Nityamachyutapadambuja Yugma Rugma Vyamohatastaditarani Trinaya Mene Asmadguror Bhagavatosya Dayaika Sindhoho Ramanujasya Charanau Sharanam Prapadye. So with prayers at the lotus feet of the Acharyas, let us now move on to the next shloka, that is the 12th shloka of the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So in this shloka, Krishna is continuing to speak. He has already begun speaking, and this is the second shloka where he is continuing to speak. Natve vaham jatunasam natvam neme janadhipaha nachaiva na bhavishyamaha sarve vayamatah param. So here Krishna is telling Arjuna, never was there a time when I did not exist. Never there was a time when you did not exist. Nor was there a time when all these kings did not exist in the past. Nor in the future any of us will cease to be. So what Krishna is trying to say here is that whether it is I, whether it is you, O Arjuna, or it is all these kings, there was no time when we did not exist in the past. There is no time when we will not exist in the future. So here, the meaning he is trying to convey is that forever, even in the past, we were all there, and even in the future, we will all be there. Now, this type of wording sounds a little weird to us. That why is this shloka not directly why Krishna is saying that we were always there even in the past, we are all here in the present, and we will continue to be in the present, in the future. So why is Krishna not saying directly, that we were always existing, we continue to exist, and even in the future, we will all continue to exist. So this thing that there was no time in the past when I did not exist, this kind of a wordage is the use of two negatives together. And the meaning is the same positive term, but two negatives are being used here. The idea is to emphasize what is being told, right? Like to make it easy for us to understand here, the Acharya gives the example of how, suppose you go to a village and you ask, who is the educated person in this village? Now let us say they point to one person and say that he is the educated person in this village. So when they say he is the educated person in the village, we understand that he is educated, but we do not get any idea about whether he is the only educated person or there are other people also who are educated in that village, isn't it? But suppose they say, when I ask who is the educated person in this village, suppose they say that no one other than him is educated in this village, then what does it mean? It is emphasizing that only this person is educated. No one in this village is educated other than this person. So in the similar way, here Krishna is saying there was no time when we were all not present. There will not be any time when we will not be present. So he is using that double negative language to indicate, to emphasize that this is very important concept that is being conveyed. So we may think, okay, we are all present here, that we are able to see that Krishna is there, that Arjuna is there, that all the kings on the battlefield are there. So everybody can see that they are there. And there is no need of any sakshi, of any witness. But similarly, we can't say the same for the past, because right now what we are seeing is only the present. So we cannot see what was there in the past, nor we know that what is going to happen in the future, isn't it? So we may think that, okay, present we can see, but we don't know about past and future. We don't have any sakshi for that. But what is this that we are saying we can see, and what is it that Krishna is saying he knows? The discussion is about the Atma and not about the body. So when we listen to the shloka and we say we can see the present, again, we are not seeing the Atma. We are talking about the body, which we can see. Because the Atma is something which is very sukshma, which cannot be seen with our eyes. So when we are talking at our level, we are going to say only about the body. But what actually is Krishna referring to here about the Atma? And that Atma is the most subtle entity that cannot be seen at all. So Krishna is trying to convey that even in the past, before this present time, all these Atmas were present. Even now, the Atma continues to exist. And even in the future, no matter what happens to the body, the Atma will continue to exist. So, in other words, Krishna is explaining to Arjuna that try and understand the eternal nature of the Atma. So, if Atma was there in the past, Atma will be there even now, and it will be there in the future also. Then, what does it mean? That the Atma cannot be killed. It is only the body that will get killed, but the Atma cannot be killed. So, Krishna is trying to tell Arjuna that now, if you understand this truth, that the Atma cannot be killed, not by you, not by anybody, not at any point of time, then there is no question of Arjuna feeling guilty and saying that I am going to be killing Dronacharya, I will kill Bhishma, or to think that they will be killed by me. So there is no value at all to this kind of a argument which Arjuna is putting forth to convince Arjuna that see what you are saying is actually very childish. And we saw in the previous shloka how Krishna told that who is the Pandita, the one who knows to distinguish between the temporary nature of the body and the one who knows the eternal nature of the Atma. So again, now further Krishna is emphasizing that all these Atmas were there in the past also. They are present in the they are presently existing also, and they will continue to be existing in the future also. So if you say something was there in the past, it is there right now, and it is going to be there in the future, that means it can never die, it cannot be killed. So where is the question, Arjuna, of saying that you are going to be the killer of all these kings on the enemy side? So don't lament over the fact that you will be responsible for their death, because when we say XYZ, then that XYZ is not the body of XYZ, but it is the Atma. And that Atma cannot be killed by you, because the Atma is eternal in nature. So Krishna is trying to convince Arjuna about this. Now, why Krishna is saying, you look in the shloka, Krishna says, there was no time when I did not exist. He puts himself first, and then he says, you and all these other kings, right? So why is Krishna anchoring it all to himself? So in the Ramayana, there are shlokas where Lakshmana's expression of his sentiments for Rama are given. So there, in one of the shlokas, Lakshmana says to Rama that, "O Rama, I cannot live without you, just as Sita cannot live without you, just as a fish cannot live outside the water." So what Lakshmana is trying to emphasize here, he's taking one example, which is a constant, a known example, which everybody can relate to. The knowledge that a fish cannot live outside of water. If you take a fish out of water, it will struggle for its life. It cannot breathe the oxygen which is there in the air. So the minute you pull a fish out of water and hold it for some time, it will flutter, 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 and it will die. So we know fish cannot live outside of water. So just like that fish cannot live out of water, Sita cannot live without you, Rama. And just like Sita cannot live without you, I also cannot live without you. This is what Lakshmana is telling. So in this kind of a construction, we see that one example which can be taken as a constant is used to express another similar sentiment. So here, when in this shloka, Krishna is saying that I was always present, I am there in the present also, I was always there in the past, I am there in the present, and I'm going to be there in future. So that Krishna is the constant in all the kalas. Similarly, you, Arjuna, and all the other kings here, that is the Atmas, were always there in the past, they are there in the present, and they are going to be there in the future. So, using himself as the constant, Krishna is giving this explanation to Arjuna. So, when we talk of this, then the Sri Vaishnava Acharyas, Swami Ramanujacharya, Swami Vedanta Deshikar, they all express, they use this shloka to also point out that Lord Krishna is, whatever he's saying, is supporting a siddhanta, a concept, a doctrine called as tattvatraya siddhanta. So tattva means that which is the ultimate reality, the eternal reality. And traya refers to three. So in the Visistadvaita Sampradaya, in the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, from which I come, the idea is that there are three tattvas. One is called Achit, the second is called Chit, and the third is called Ishvara. So here when we say Ishvara, this term does not refer to Shiva, but rather Ishvara is the supreme being. Ishvara is the one who is the controller, the lord of all. You can say, you can use the word Brahman. Again, not Brahma, who is a deity, but Brahman, who is used as an equivalent for Ishvara. Either we can say Brahman or we can say Paramatma. So these three tattvas are the realities: Achit, Chit, and Ishvara. So this word Chit comes from the root word Chaitanya. So Chaitanya means Jnana. So Chaitanyam is Jnanam. So something which has Jnana is called Chit. And that is the Jivatma, the Atma who is there in every body, the Atma who is experiencing whatever happens. Now, what do we experience? If I smell a flower, if I drink a juice and I enjoy that juice, right? So, all these experiences which I'm having arise from that object. Now, that object has no jnana. That is an inanimate object. So, that object which has no jnana is called as achit tattva. So, you have a chit tattva, which is the jivatma, the one who is experiencing everything. You have an achit tattva, which is the object which is being experienced by the jivatma. So along with these two, there is a third tattva who is Ishvara or Brahman or Paramatma. Now we may think that we have a chit and achit. So that completes our setup, isn't it? So we can have one who is experiencing, and we have one who is the object being experienced. So if there is food and I want to eat that food, then the food is there to be eaten, and I'm there to eat the food and experience it. Similarly, there is some work to be done. There is the equipment I have to do the work, and I am there to do the work. So only these two would have been sufficient to explain everything. Now, where is this concept of Ishvara, of the Paramatma, coming into the picture? So, to understand this again, the Acharyas give an example. They say that if you say that there is a person who is experiencing and there is an object being experienced. Now, let us take an example. If there is a person who has been told by the doctor to eat food at a particular time. Now he's been advised that you should have your dinner strictly within 8 o'clock, because otherwise your health will get spoiled. Now this person has come home and told his wife. So the wife has cooked the food. It is ready to be eaten. So the food is there ready to be eaten. This person who is going to eat is also there. So there is chit also, there is achit also, right? Now he sits down to eat. Let us say at that time somebody comes and rings the bell, and then he goes to open the door, and there is some person who has come and who keeps talking to this person, and maybe that is even somebody who has come to the wrong house. But what happens as a result of that? he is not able to follow that rule of coming and eating his food within that prescribed time. So what happened now? There was Chit, there was Achit, but only those two did not control the outcome of the event. There is a third force which controls the outcome of the event, and that third force is what we call as the Paramatma. So to just give you a small example of my own, like I had said last week that I will be traveling. So I left last night to go to Chennai. The train was delayed, but anyway, the train was there. I was there to go in the train. So the objective was to reach Chennai and attend a function there. But what happened? Along the way, somewhere the train stopped in the middle of the night. Then it didn't move at all. Then there were some other decisions we took. We came to some place. We tried to go by bus, but then again it was going to be too late. So I came back to Bangalore. So here there was a third force. Me as the chit, I was there. The train to take the journey was there, but the outcome was not achieved. So there is a third force who is the controller. So you have heard people say that man proposes, God disposes, isn't it? So it is like the same concept that we decide to do something sometimes, but there is always a factor which we have no control over. There is some other entity there which is also involved, which is actually deciding the outcome. So that is the Ishvara Tattva, the Paramatma. So like this, we have three tattvas, the Chit, the Achit, and the Paramatma or Ishvara. So here when we say, what is the difference? This Chit, the Jivatma, is never going to change. And that is why the Atma, which is the Chit, never changes. That is why Krishna is saying, we were always there in the past, we are there in the present, we will be there in the future. Now, Achit is something which changes the form. But although it changes the form, it does not get destroyed. If you take any inanimate object, right? That inanimate object may change its form. It can undergo different kinds of changes, but it will not get ever destroyed completely, isn't it? Like, for example, if I had mud, the potter takes the mud, mixes it with water, he uses his wheel, and he makes a pot out of it. So that which was clay or mud became the pot. Now, suppose somebody is using the pot, it become to store, let us say, curd. Then it is a curd pot. Now, after some time, it will grow older. It will maybe fall down somewhere and be broken. So the pot has changed its form, right? It has broken. But has it been destroyed? No. If that pot, broken pieces of pot are again powdered, they become broken pot pieces which have been powdered and they become mud again. So changes can occur, but there will never be complete destruction of the achit. So, what is the difference between this chit and achit? The chit has jnana or chaitanya, and therefore it is able to understand. The achit has no jnana, no chaitanya, so there is no ability to understand. And the third entity, which is beyond this chit and achit, which actually is the controller of these two, is whom we call as Ishvara or Paramatma. So these are the Tattvatraya, Paramatma, Jivatma, and Achit. So when Krishna is saying I, who is that I? It is the Paramatma. Who is you and all these kings? That are the Jivatmas. So what Krishna is implying is that the Paramatma and Jivatmas will always be present. Now, why Krishna said you and then he said all these kings? So that means, and he says they were always present, they are present, they will be present. So is he talking about the body here? Absolutely not. Because the body has changed, isn't it? So if we look at this concept, we know that when a person is living, then that living entity, we see him as a person. But actually, now there are two entities there. The Jivatma within him, which is having Chaitanya, is the Chit. And the body which that Jivatma has taken up is the inanimate part, which is Achit. That is why once the Jivatma leaves the body, then there is no further action, there is no further knowledge that the body has, isn't it? So there is a big difference between a living person and the corpse which is just lying on the floor. What is that difference? The lack of Chaitanya. And that is why Krishna, when he's talking about the Jivatmas. And here the important point to note, as per the Sri Vaishnava Acharyas, is that he is that Krishna is talking about the Atmas And he is indicating by saying Atmas, all these kings, you and all that, he is indicating that there are actually multiple Atmas which are present. So by this shloka, the acharyas say that it is a strong defense of the theory that there are multiple Atmas. So here there is a little conflict among the different sampradayas, among the different mattas which are there. So in the Advaita philosophy, for which the proponent was Adi Shankaracharya, in the Advaita philosophy, there is the concept that at the end of life, or when some Atma, not at the end of life, when some Atma attains moksha or liberation. What is this liberation? Being liberated from the cycle of birth and death. So that is commonly accepted by all the acharyas. But what the Advaita philosophy says is that when you get moksha, then it is that this Atma which is there merges with the Paramatma, and it becomes one entity. Whereas in the Visistadvaita philosophy, the concept is that yes, moksha is liberation from the cycle of birth and death, but there is no merger of the Atma with the Paramatma. It is just that the Atma goes to Sri Vaikunta, and there it stays as a dasa, as a servant of the Paramatma. So moksha is liberation from the cycle of birth and death, but it does not mean merging of Atma with Paramatma. If merging of Atma with Paramatma was to happen, then there would be no separate Atmas. There would only be one entity who is the Paramatma, isn't it? So here there is a difference in the philosophy. Anyway, for now, we don't need to worry about this aspect, because we are only trying to understand the concept of the Bhagavad Gita from the point of view of what I can adopt in my life, right? So from that point of view, the Sampradaya Bheda, the differences among the Sampradayas, are not things that really concern us. So if there is anybody who wants to learn more about that, they can find other sources and they can do their study. But for us, for now, we need to understand that Krishna is indicating that at all points of time, there are multiple Atmas which are present. So he is trying to explain to Arjuna this factor. So what we have to understand here is that there are three tattvas, and they have some differences. So Achit Tattva refers to all the materialistic objects which we see around us, the inanimate objects. The Jivatmas are the Chit Tattva, and the Ishvara is the Paramatma. So the Achit has no jnana, the Chit has jnana, and Ishvara or Paramatma is himself jnana. The Achit Tattva keeps changing. It undergoes decay over time. It changes its form, but it does not get destroyed. The Chit Tattva does not change, but then it appears as if the Jivatma experiences changing emotions as the situations change. Now, if indeed it is true that the Atma does not change, then why does it happen that a human being experiences Sukha at some time, which is happiness, and experiences Dukkha at some time, which is unhappiness? Because as situations change, we have those particular emotional experiences. Now, why does it happen? Because, as we already said in the last satsang, the Atma, the Jivatma, is trapped inside the body. So, by its nature, the Atma has no such change. The Atma is always Ananda Swarupa. But because it is trapped within the body, it takes on that attitude of having good feeling at some time and bad feeling at another time. But in its moola nature, by itself, its root nature, the Atma is always not subject to any kind of change, regardless of circumstances. And of course, Ishvara, we know, the Paramatma, does not ever undergo any kind of change. In fact, in one of the names for the Lord in the Vishnu Sahasranama is Avikaraya. So he does not. Vikara means change, some kind of a distortion. So avikara means the one who never undergoes any change, the one who is always constantly in that same jnana ananda swarupa. So what is the essence of all this. Now, it appears as though we are talking a lot of philosophy here, isn't it? But what we can get from this? There are many ways in which we can look at this and try to adopt in our life. I did not put that slide in here, but I will just explain that in brief. So, we said that from this discussion now, we know that our Atma is such that it is unchanging in nature and it has jnana. Unfortunately, many times we get so carried away with our emotions that we flow the way our emotions flow. But if we want to avoid that up and down in our emotions, if we want to avoid that roller coaster ride, then what it is that we should do? We must hang on to the thought that when I say I am not this body, but I am the Atma within. So this actual Swarupa, this Jivatma, is also having Chaitanya. I have Jnana. So I must not get carried away by whatever happens in my life. And I must remember that I am always having Ananda Swarupa. That is something we can try to tell ourselves. Of course, in the real sense, the ability to experience this will take a lot of effort. We have to go far ahead on the journey, and then only we may be able to reach that stage. But at least we can consciously keep telling our intellect that I am the Atma, I am not this body. Whenever anything unpleasant happens, this is not for my Atma, it is not for the Atma, it is not for me, it is only for this body. That is an attitude that I can try to develop so that I start experiencing detachment from the situations that come up in my life. Whether it is about feeling pleasure in good situations or feeling displeasure in sad or bad situations, if we try to cultivate this attitude and hang on to that thought, it will be easier for us to stick on to our understanding of what is the purpose of our life. The other thing is we also need to understand that whatever objects are there, after all, they are only material objects. They don't have any jnana and they are going to keep changing at every point of time and nothing is going to remain constant. So our hankering for material objects should also gradually reduce. So we must use this knowledge that we have gained to understand that after all, there is something that I'm very attached to. I want that phone. I want this house. I want to own a car. I want to own those kind of clothes. If something happens, something gets spoiled, any of my belongings is lost. Okay, some object I lose. It is a very precious thing. I feel bad about it. After all, it is just a material object. There is no jnana in that object. So what is the value of that object? What is the value of my hankering for that object? Should I waste so much of my energy and time in developing my attachment to objects in my life? That kind of an attitude, if we try to cultivate this kind of a viveka in our life, then we will find it easier to go through our life with ease, without getting affected mentally or feeling upset about all the events that happen in our life. We feel very upset even for small things. Somebody does not listen to us, we feel upset about that. Something does not happen as per our plan, we feel upset about that. Somebody says something rude to us, we feel upset about that. People don't do as I tell them to do, we feel bad about that. I lose an object, I feel bad about that. I gain an object, I feel happy about that. So all these varying emotions, that feeling happy at some point of time, feeling dukkha at another point of time, comes because I am having, because I'm not able to understand the reality that as the Jivatma, I am always constant in this same, I am not subject to all these kind of changes. But it is only the objects that are subject to change, and it is actually not worth doing anything to, be attached to those objects. So this and understanding that Lord is avikara. He is the only constant. He is the one who never undergoes any change. And he is always available for us as our recourse. So the understanding that is also far more important. We must understand that what is our Swarupa. We must understand the reality of the objects around us. And most importantly, however, we must understand that the ultimate reality, who is our only goal in life, is the Lord. And attaining his feet is what is the purpose of our life. So we have talked about a few concepts here. Let us now offer Kritagnyata and stop here for now. Later I will take up any question which is there. So let us offer gratitude, Kritagnyata, at the lotus feet of Sri Krishna and Guru for enabling us to start and join this satsang. And let us pray for their blessings and grace to always be on us. Thank you very much, everybody, for attending. So here Shobha has asked a question that what is the difference between Jivatma and Paramatma? Both of them do not change. Yes, I think if we only think a little more, we can try and understand what is the difference between Jivatma and Paramatma. The common factor is that both do not change. Yes, but there are a lot of differences. How are we as Jivatmas? We are carrying a baggage of karma with us. Does the Paramatma have the karma? No. As Jivatmas, because of the baggage of karma, we are taking different bodies and we are coming to this earth to work out all that baggage and get rid of it. But does that apply to the Paramatma? No. Paramatma may come on this earth at different points of time. He comes as an incarnation. He comes as an avatara. But what is the purpose of his avatara? It is, as Krishna has told, Paritranaya sadhunam, vinashaya cha dushkritam, dharma samsthapanarthaya. So he comes to, support and help the sadhus. He comes to destroy the evildoers, and he comes to re-establish dharma. So for the Lord, there is no birth, there is no death. For the jivatmas who have to work out all their karma, there is the continuous cycle of birth and death. Then when you look at the qualities.
So, but Atma has no death, right?
Yeah,
we
the
are
Atma
carrying
has
the
no death.
karma to the next level. Based on this present karma, we are carrying that to be the next
Exactly.
travel.
Hmm.
But Atma has no death.
Atma has no death. I didn't say that
It
Atma
will
has
just
death.
travel from present to future.
Yes. But it is
So what is
traveling
the
with the
main
baggage.
difference?
It is traveling with the baggage of the karma, no, to be worked out.
Okay.
So it is not having the same. This Atma, this Jivatma Swarupa is different from that of the Lord. And then when we look further, we say that the Paramatma is full of all the Kalyana Gunas. He has all the auspicious qualities. He is having Jnana, Shakti, Bala, Ishwarya, Tejas, Virya, all those qualities, which are not there in the Jivatma. So as long as the Jivatma is hanging on to the baggage of all the karmas and it does not attain moksha, it will continue to be in this kind of a situation. So that is the primary difference between the Atma, the Jivatma,
and is Paramatma sitting in each soul? I mean Jivatma?
Yeah, he is sitting within us.
Okay, so he is watching each individual soul.
Yes, he is very much there.
Okay,
He is sitting in the middle of all
even in
our...
small, from ants to big
Yes,
insects.
yes. Then there was a question which I think Bindu had asked about what is the soul actually, when it has come into existence and all that. Since we are running short of time today, we will take that up in the next satsang. Actually, what will happen is, as we go to the further shlokas of the Bhagavad Gita, we will come to an understanding of all those terms. So rather than telling you the answer right now and jumping out of context or making it, trying to explain it now, it will come in the course of the other shlokas. So I think it is best that we take it up as and when it comes there. Until then, maybe we can keep that question like that. And wherever it appears and it is relevant, and the explanation for that the acharyas have given, at that point of time, I will take it and explain so that then the meaning is completely clear. Because in the context of the shloka, understanding that will be a lot easier. So I hope that will be okay for Bindu. So we can stop here for today as we are running out of time. We'll stop here for now. Thank you everybody for attending. And in the next satsang, we will meet again on next Thursday. Namaskar. Thank you everybody.
Thank you, Ansuya ji.
Thank you.